So we're going to move on now, and I'm going to move on to our next speaker, who is David Levine from the American Sustainable Business Council. Now, he is co-founder and president of the ASBC, and he is a social entrepreneur of over 30 years experience working for a more sustainable society through building strategic partnerships and a broad stakeholders initiative. And he also has many of his own incredible initiatives and projects. Now, the ASBC and Social Economy Europe, the organization I work for, have signed a memorandum of understanding. And I'd like to quote David from this recent common statement that we have. So David, you say, "We need to find real solutions and take determined action through all facets of our economy, from reimagining green infrastructure, regenerative agriculture, safer chemicals, plastics, energy efficiency, renewable energy, and green buildings, to a more just transition from fossil fuels so that no energy community is left behind in the global march towards an inclusively cleaner, healthier, and more equitable planet." Really strong words, a really great statement. And I'd like to know if you have any concrete examples of sustainable enterprises from maybe the ASBC's network, from which we can learn here in Europe from your good practices. Over to you.
Great. Well, I think the first part of it is that it's about what we could learn from each other in the global community, and just a real privilege to be with you. And we are so thrilled about the partnership that we have with Social Economy Europe. You know, as we all move down this pathway to try and figure out how to get to a more just and sustainable economy and societies. So the American Sustainable Business Council was formed back in about 2008, 2009, because we saw an incredible growth of business organizations and companies that were moving in this direction, whether they were social enterprise, sustainable, green, responsible, call them what you want, but they were operating with the values that you all have been talking about already. And what we thought was missing, though, was to turn that into a voice and a power to create the changing of the rules, to engage in public policy, to do that in a way that we could make the business and economic case. Because what we understood was that, you know, that the arguments being made against what many of us see as common sense, responsible solutions to the world and our community's problems, you know, were being blocked because they were said it was bad for business and the economy. And we needed these business leaders to step up and articulate, you know, the solutions, the innovations, the opportunities, but also to advocate and to use their brands and their power as business leaders to help this transition towards the just and sustainable economy. So through our model of bringing together the many different business stakeholders and investors and these organizations, we now collectively represent over 250,000 businesses and enterprises in the United States. And therefore, the partnership with Social Economy Europe becomes even that much more important. And, you know, as a part of this work, as I'm saying, it was key for us to really engage on policy. And the focus has been the United States, although we're hoping that we could really expand that with our partnerships with all of you in terms of sort of moving this agenda forward elsewhere. But what has been key for us, whether we're working at the federal level, the state level, or the local level, is that politicians have said that this is incredibly important for business leaders to show up. We're so tired of just hearing from the business leaders that tell us we cannot move in this direction. And you are actually providing the kind of voice that we need to hear from, as well as the solutions of how business can actually operate. The other piece that's important to us is that it is crucial to understand the many different ways that we can help in the transition of the economy and our societies. And so, you know, as we look towards 2021 and the like, you know, looking at race and equity, circular economy, safer chemicals, regenerative agriculture, climate and renewable energy, you know, not all, and of course, the preservation and advancement of democracy. So whatever the issue is, you know, we try to dive deeper on those issues, but also see the connected tissue between all of these issues. So as a part of the work, to give you a sense of how we have moved on this, we have helped to write and created the Crowdfunding Act that passed in, about 4 or 5 years ago. Helped to move benefit corporation and other new corporate forms. Helped to create greater transparency in terms of corporate responsibility and actions and the like, and have really played an important role in driving worker ownership and driving social economy. But to help this along via the policies. So when we look towards circular economy and safer chemicals, we help to change and move the federal chemical policy bill, not as far as REACH has gone, in the European Union, but we modeled from that, we learned from that, and we're able to try and do what we can do to get the chemical industry to the table and to try and as we did. But we continue that work. We just passed a sustainable chemistry bill. We're moving forward, on a break free from plastics bill right now, bringing the business voice to the table that has been missing in terms of working outside the environmental groups, the community groups, the social justice groups, and the others that are trying. Because why? Because we can provide that vision for also where are the businesses growth going to come from? Where are the jobs going to come from? How do we do that in a way that also solves for the environmental and social problems as we're driving for the economic solutions? So again, all of this becomes an important part of why it's crucial to have business at the table helping to develop the agenda. And again, many, many other examples from looking at environmental and social governance, right? ESG, and the rules that the Trump administration, had tried to put forward, trying to undo that now and put ESG criteria as a major part of how we look at the way that government and business looks at their responsibility to society, or whether it's stopping fossil fuel projects like passing a ban on fracking, hydraulic fracking in New York State, or stopping the Keystone Pipeline, or looking at what's going on in Alaska right now and really stop, over to how do we advance the renewable energy projects, and to do that in a way that our speakers before us have really spoken to, right? How do we create that community control? How do we create worker ownership? How do we create a transition of the economy so we're just not creating 5 companies left in the world that are benevolent, but that the transition to a more sustainable economy is inclusive of a shift in the way we do our economy itself and the way business operates and the like. So as a part of the work now, it's, how do we look? The United States is very much in the debate about infrastructure and how to be able to use that as an opportunity to rebuild from COVID. But the way we're entering into the space is, whether it was our first attempt at creating businesses for a Green New Deal, over to the Thrive legislation, but looking at it in an interconnected way, right? From green water infrastructure to broadband access to rural communities, to smart surfaces, to high-speed rail, to the National Infrastructure Bank and other creative financing mechanism that would really help us to drive this economy. Alongside that, working with projects like this Escalante project in New Mexico, which is taking a decommissioned coal plant and moving it over to a hydrogen plant, right? It's blue hydrogen on the path to green hydrogen, where they sequester any emissions that might, emanate from the use of the present use of gas in order to fuel this, but to the creation over to hydrogen power to really move this, creating the kinds of jobs, right? The just transition that we're talking about for this very community that lost these energy jobs, but now to put them in the green economy and these green jobs. Or over to projects like in Trenton, New Jersey, a predominantly African American community that's trying to reclaim the land, put it into land trusts and what we call REITs, and create these kinds of economic opportunities that are about greening the space in the very urban area, but creating the enterprises, including the growth of agriculture, fiber and fabric and the like arts and cultural built into it, right? The kinds of community activity that Agamemnon was talking about, really building that social fabric as we're building the transition. So for us, again, it is crucial, to be able to work together and build the business and investors and social enterprise and bring us all together as we can create that community, but we can also create that power that we need to change the rules, change the system, and put in place the kinds of policies, at the local, at the state, at the national, but also at the international level. So we look forward to our collaboration with all of you in building this forward. So thank you.
Thank you very much, David. It's an inspiring how much you've achieved through the American Sustainable Business Council, and we're honored to be able to have a partnership with you. And I especially like what you say about bringing organizations like us that are purely social economy in partnership with organizations like yours that are sustainable business, not purely social economy, but we can learn from each other and we can try and make sure that traditional businesses gain the same kind of values that the social economy has. And that's the way we're going to really make a transition into a new type of economy. And then you've touched upon fantastic projects with regard to the just transition. And I was fascinated by the example you gave of turning a coal mine into a hydrogen power plant. I mean, that's innovation 101. It's pure innovation. And it's really, really exciting. And I'd love to hear more about that. So if anybody in the audience also has any ideas or examples, please feel free to put those in the chat. And David, I'll ask if you have any links to those. If you could put any links in the chat, or if you could send them to me and I will spread them. I'll shout from the hilltops about it because it's really exciting stuff.